Hi everybody, welcome to my channel, and today I want to talk about something that I think is being completely ignored by the British press, and that's the ongoing saga with the Greek betting scandal and also the referee corruption that's going on in Greece. But before I want to carry on, I just want to do a quick legal disclaimer. Everything that I found out so far are based on court documents in Greece, wiretapping evidence that was presented in the legal proceedings, and the official charges and suspensions announced by the Greek authority. This video is for public interest, debate, analysts, and I do not put guilt on any individual named. And I think there's only going to be a couple that are named in this. But basically, it's the major scandal that's erupting in Europe with one direct, uncomfortable link basically to the UK and the Premier League, and more the Premier League. And it's just shocking that it's passing glimpses that you hear a little bit about it, especially someone like Simon Jordan on TalkSport. But basically, it's Marinakis, who is the owner of Nottingham Forest. He is one of the main people involved in this as well in Greece. I'm not saying any Nottingham Forest fan or club or anything else like that, and I'm not bashing them. But he is at the centre of this, and this wasn't about him, and it wasn't until I started digging into this that I found out a little bit more. But it was just the fact that I remember little bits on TalkSport, I remember little bits on Sky Sports, I remember little articles in BBC and a couple of podcasters going on about it. But it's not mainstream. And this is all about referees, match fixing, corruption in the Greek game, that the Greek authorities are trying to flush it out. But why isn't it being covered here in the UK? And I have a few little bits that I'm going to talk about in this recording in a little bit. So, at the heart of the allegations and the systematic corruption that's going on in Greece, it does revolve around Olympiacos and lots of other clubs, so I'm not going to really go on that. But basically, it's the systematic match fixing that's going on. And these aren't rumours, these are actual. The Greek authority have wiretap recording allegedly revealing conversations between referees, match officials, and owners and other shady figures in the game, betting groups, I'm presuming, discussing the manipulation of the matches over the years. The scope is vast, and this is what I didn't really understand until I started again looking into this. The scope basically includes European qualification, league titles, championship matches, and just basically the Greek authorities are really worried for the actual integrity of the game and the core crisis in this refereeing scandal. But it's not just a one-off incident in Greece. They've had a few of these over the years. So from manipulating officials way back from at least 20 years, I think it was one of the things that I'm way going back, and they've suspended top officials, they've investigated, and just the web of corruption continues, even though they tried to stamp it out. Again, this is quite shocking. But when one of the things that they was brought up and I was looking at was basically wiretapping evidence that they have detailed conversations basically of rigging the game, rigging the match, and the stakes involved and these include, in these wiretapping issues, fraud, bribery, manipulation of the matches, and illegal betting markets. It's a massive criminal enterprise that basically is affecting it all, and the consequences, if everything gets proved and it goes through the court system like it looks like it is in the ramifications for the Greek league and the Greek officials and club owners and stuff like that is going to be massive. But the UK media seem to think that, oh, it's nothing important to cover, when actually, this is probably one of the biggest cases that could affect European football and change the game and how clubs are run and governed in the whole of Europe. And this is the issue, where is the comparison? Because we don't seem to be taking it here seriously, or the Premier League, or anybody doesn't seem to be taking it here in the UK media. And there is a massive connection between an owner of a Premier League club in the UK and a club in Greece that is basically heavily involved in this corruption and are very much at the centre of these allegations. And it's not the first time that Marinakis has been proven or been brought to court for this type of thing. Yes, he was acquitted, but he was, a while ago, was 2000, not too sure, but he was basically accused of serious match fixing. He was accused of match fixing before he bought Forest. So why wasn't this brought up in the fair owners use, whatever they call it now? Due diligence on an owner. Basically, this is something that the Premier League should come out and address and go, yes, we are aware of these allegations against one of our owners. This is our investigation into it, and this is the outcome. So why, and of course with wiretapping and all of this evidence, that probably, have they asked the Greek authorities for it? Have they turned around and said, what actual evidence are you looking into? Because he owns another club in Portugal as well. Is this going on? Is this going to affect how Forest as a club do business later on? These are the questions that we don't know. And why is the media not covering it? And this is starting to really bugbear, because it's something every fan should be aware of what's happening. And this brings me to the crux of the whole thing is, if it's happening in Greece, could it be happening in other leagues throughout Europe, the world? So the way Greece have handled it, and they've done their investigation, should we follow suit, and should all European federations do the same? Because if you think, this is a double standard for me, because I remember, I want to say 2005, 2006, in Italy, where they had that scandal reference basically match fixing, and I think Juventus got relegated and all of that type of stuff that happened. And I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I know it was around that time, and how I remember it being in the press. I remember it being everywhere, everybody talking about it in the football industry. And this doesn't seem to be anywhere in anybody's talking points, and yet it's so important we should be discussing, especially in the age of social media, where it's like, oh, it might affect us. If we sweep it under the rug, then it doesn't matter, it might go away. Olympiacos compete in the Champions League, and they're talking about these results being rigged. So they're then taking spots away from teams that are genuine in Greece, or another federation could have taken that spot. So they're affecting the whole of UEFA's tournament leagues, from not only Champions League, Europa, and the conference ones that they run, So why aren't FIFA coming out and making a statement about this? Why aren't FIFA being proactive about this? Why aren't we talking more about multi-ownerships? Because basically, and I think people have forgotten about this, Crystal Palace should be where Forest are, and Forest should be where Crystal Palace are competing in Europe. But because of the multi-ownership rule that Palace got caught on, they were in the conference and not in the UEFA, the league. whichever way around it is. So, but they got caught for that, but it's fine for somebody to own 3 clubs that's involved in corruption, this isn't the first time that he's been involved, although he was not guilty, proven not guilty. But by God, Crystal Palace got dragged through the coals for this, and I'm not a Crystal Palace fan, but they got dragged through the coals and lost a lot of money in Europe because of it. So, again, why aren't UEFA investigating this role? And this is coming back to the referee scandals, because why aren't the referees investigated? Why aren't after every match or every year? How many have accounts? Are they using friends to use betting accounts? Which was what was going on in Greece as well. So again, FIFA should be looking at this and putting out a statement, or at least time and saying, we are aware of the allegation, we are investigating it. And that's so important, but it's not happening. And this then's going to bring me on to my next point. And this is, as I said, this is what brings me on to my next point. The demand for answers and the VAR link. Now, yes, we all do not like it, but should the league reopen the fit and proper person's assessment for every single club owner at the beginning of each year, or the start of each season, or just before? And then start to ask questions. Where's UEFA's due diligence on these multi-club structures? Is it just they pick and choose who's ever paying their pockets the most? I'm not saying that is going on, but again, we're talking about corruption here, and that is part of corruption. And this is one thing that brings me back to the whole controversy on the referees and everything else. Is the VAR connection, and this is the uncomfortable truth. The Greek scandal, which alleges referees being managed and controlled, force us really to look at our own league. I'm not saying there's corruption in the Premier League at all. And again, as I stated in there, this is for debate purpose only. But it does make you question every single week. And us fans have been saying it for forever, since VAR come in. Are specific referees having agendas against clubs? We all feel that they are, especially if it's your club. Doesn't matter which club it is. I do believe 99.999%, even probably 100%, are down to human error, or just a flaw in the system or a flaw in the law. But when scandals erupt like they are in Greece, and with how much betting's involved on each individual game in the UK, Europe, wherever, it does plant the seed of doubt in every single mind. Because again, if it's happening in one league, is it happening in every other league? And what protections are being put in place to stop this? We don't know. We can't see an independent audit. We can't question anything as fans. And some of the VAR decisions, are they correct? Are they doing it just to create excitement into the game? Is it being controlled by other people to turn around and say, look, we need this to be exciting to stop a runaway league leader or anything like that? So again, I'm not saying the corruption is there in the Premier League or any other league in Europe, but what I feel is if it's happening in one league, why aren't we investigating it in every other league? So, what really needs to happen? Do we all agree that we need clean leagues? Do Greek fans deserve a clean football league? Yes, especially if you're one of the clubs that have been affected by it and you've played by all the rules. And where's the transparency and governance? From Premier League to UEFA, and everybody all needs to act on this. And the media need to really push this as well, because without the media pushing back, everybody thinks it's just swept under the carpet and it can go away. And the silence from the UK media, especially how high profile they are on football and how much content they produce on football across all their platforms, is deafening. And they should be doing more. And what can we do as fans? Well, we want fairness in the game and we want parity throughout. So why don't, we should be pushing the agenda. We should be talking about this. We should be putting comments on Sky Sports or the BBC, Premier League, Talk Sport, and as content creators, we should be talking about it more as well, because without people shouting out and talking about this isn't going to go anywhere. And it will just be, there will be a ruling, maybe 2 years down the line, oh, this happened. End of it. And we will never know really the outcome unless we look at it. So anyway, I'd like to know what your takes are on this. Or am I just reading too much into this? Or am I looking too deep into it? Am I not looking enough? People want me to dive a lot more into this or any other topic, I'm more than happy to do it. Will there just be ignorance and everything just swept under the carpet with everybody going, oh, well, it doesn't affect, it's the Greece League, it doesn't affect us, when it does affect everybody. So again, that's what people have got to remember. Anyway, I'd like to know your thoughts and comments on this. If you like my content, please like and subscribe, and look forward to speaking to you all again very soon on another topic. And once again, thank you for your time to listening to this podcast.